Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hello friends, I'm here to tell you the saga of my weird neighbor. I have no idea where to post this other than /x/ because it's not a normal story, so it must be paranormal. The slightly less strange preamble. Live in a slightly rural town. Only have about 5 neighbors on my street. All houses are on one side facing a field. All keep to ourselves. Only really know one old lady neighbor 2 houses down. Directly to the left of my house are the odd neighbors. Never really talked to them, only saw them every so often. Before I got too acquainted with them, these are the experiences I experienced. Their dad did sit-ups on the grass halfway through mowing his lawn. This was great entertainment while eating dinner. Their huge Dalmatian always wandered onto our property and just stared at us with its creepy blue eyes. And we saw the weirdest one of them, the daughter, going on walks on the roadside. This was weird for multiple reasons. There was almost no shoulder on the road. For most of my childhood, she was pregnant. My mom said she kept losing the baby and was pregnant at least 3 times I can remember. Weirder still, she had no husband or boyfriend, which was even weirder in my rural town, and lived with her parents. On her walks, she wore the weirdest things: stilettos, long dresses with like those trains wedding gowns have, enormous pieces of jewelry, enormous floppy sun hats. All on a dingy road in the middle of summer. Was usually 150% dripping sweat. Never really talked to them until I got to my teens. In my teens, we got their mail. My mom makes me walk over and give it to them. Walk over there, mail in hand. Get to their lawn. Turn the corner on their driveway. Almost turn back. The daughter, 30 years old, overweight, is sitting on the porch. In a white, or used to be, bra. Gray from her sweat in some places. Smoking a cigarette. Sweatpants in August. Walk up. Can smell her from quite a distance. Oh, Jesus. Hi, haha, we got your mail, here you go. Oh, thanks. My mom always told me she was off. From how she spoke, I realized she was probably burnt out from meth or something, like she was slow. Walk back. Weirdest part, we lived in a rich town. Their house was well kept, and their lawn was taken care of by landscapers, so you know they were loaded. This is only the beginning. In my teens, she wasn't pregnant, or at least that I can remember. The other daughter of that family was actually a teacher in the high school of my town, completely normal and nice anyway. The weirdest story in my opinion. Like a year or 2 later, get 2 kittens, 2 brothers. Name them Benny and Jet. They were runty and small, even as they got older. Had them for a little less than a year, so we let them roam around outside and sleep in our garage. Notice Jet is going missing a lot. Okay, whatever, they're cats. Jet goes missing for a couple days. Me and my little sister go around on our bikes asking neighbors if they saw him, or even his carcass. It was a busy road. Didn't ask the weird neighbors because they have a cat that beats the shit out of Benny and Jet. They are also weird as hell. I digress. We got back home, go inside. There's a knock on the door. It's the daughter. Hi, do you guys have a little black cat? Yeah, why? We were just looking for him. Oh, he hangs out with me sometimes, and I was wondering if I could borrow him. You know, I guess when he comes back. I thought she meant if it was okay if he came inside her house and stayed on their property or whatever. Sure, just bring him back, I guess, haha. That was a mistake. Didn't realize until afterwards that she probably has him already. She shuffles away. A day later, see her walking on the road. I felt bad for her, so I wanted to just make her feel guilty. Not directly confront her. Hi, we haven't found him yet. Would you keep an eye out for him? Yeah, sure. Shuffles away, not looking at me. Never saw that cat again. Tell my mom she took the cat. She doesn't believe me. Thinks the cat was hit by a car. Benny is really upset and cries all the time. Often see Benny go near their house and cry. That basically confirmed it. I want revenge. Having a bonfire with my friends, tell them the story, they're like, lol, we should ding-dong ditch them. Okay, we head over. It's pitch black, no lights on. Oh shit, this is gonna suck, nobody's gonna answer. Knock and run. Literally opens in like 6.5 seconds. It was fucking insane. I'm not really hidden yet. "Hello?" she says as she opens the door really fast. I don't know if she was waiting for someone or saw us coming. She leaves the door open for like 5 minutes. She steps outside. Me and my friends are shitting ourselves. She walks over to the bushes where 2 of my friends are hiding. We all sprint away, screaming like banshees. The way she shuffled over was so surreal, like a horror movie. We never go ding-dong ditching again. There's a house 2 doors down that owns a farm that spans behind my house and the weird neighbor's house. Very large farm with a barn. Older lady lives there with her son. Used to have horses. Used to. Weird neighbor's daughter fixed that. I asked the old lady why she doesn't keep horses anymore. My dad is friends with her, so we used to fish in her horse pond she kept stocked. Used to hang with the horses as a kid. But one year it stopped and she put up trespassing signs and refenced her property. Older lady goes on to explain they were a liability. This is how she told it. One day someone knocks on her door. She opens it. It's weird neighbor's daughter wearing nothing but a man's t-shirt. She was around 20 at the time. Frightened like a child, arm covered in blood, standing there. It's coming from her hand. Her ring finger and pinky are a little mangled. Older lady doesn't know what to do, and the weird girl is crying and speaking unintelligibly. Older lady neighbor wraps her in a blanket and tells her parents, who then drive her to the hospital. Older lady had video cameras installed on her barn prior to that to see where her horses were getting out and to see if any crazy kids would go on her property. Checks videotapes. Weird girl walks onto older lady's property in nothing but an oversized t-shirt and starts fucking around with the horses. Obviously under the influence of some drug. Tried to give the horses food. Was just teasing the horses. She had no food. With her hand partially closed and it bit her hand. Older lady suggests to the weird neighbor's parents to get her drug tested. They refused. Later, they tried to sue for the cost of the hospital bill, but the older lady won. Older lady neighbor said it was probably the most surreal moment of her life. Another very minor kind of foggy memory. Be me as a kid. New Year's at midnight. Every year my dad hooked up an air horn to his air compressor at midnight and people driving by would cheer. But not this one year. Dad does his thing. Blows it short 2 times, one long time. The end of the long blow is screams. Like a primal, unrelenting scream. Only an autist could make that sound. We snap our heads to the weird neighbors. They're pretty far away, but we can kind of see through trees and woods that a window is open with its lights on. Someone, a woman, is screaming out of it. Don't remember if it was actual words or what. I think my mom yelled something back and took me inside, but the memory is kind of hazy. Another, but simply a series of incidents, after she took my fucking cat. I'm still a teen. Inside joke between me and my sister to be as nice as possible if we see her walking. She acts so fucking weird. One day, getting mail, she walks up wearing white capris and a flowing shirt. "Good morning." She gets so surprised she looks up and stumbles almost into the brush on the side of the road. She's breathing really heavy even though she is going downhill. "Sure." Shuffles on while frowning and looking at the ground. Another time, it's finals, going into school midday. I ran into a car that was parked at the top near the road. The bumper is basically in the road. It's super dangerous. Get into the car in an obvious hurry. Hang around and wait a little bit to start the car. It's dead, so I don't really pay attention and start inching out. Oh shit. Slam on brakes. It's weird neighbor daughter wearing a light blue maxi dress. She keeps on shuffling along. Don't have time to say anything. Peel out of there. Some more. Get a huge yellow lab around the time of the car incident. Walking him around in the front of the house to dry him off after a bath. Super excited about having him, always wanted a dog. Dog silently stares at something, which was odd. He barked like a mofo. Look up. See the odd neighbor girl walking. I don't remember what she was wearing. Say with genuine excitement, "Hi, we got a dog." "Yeah." Frowns and shuffles away. She said it with such a knowing tone. We really only took him on walks in the back of the house, and he only kind of hung out inside, only in view of their house every so often. Made me wonder how often she watches us. The mischief night incident. Me and Lil Sis are indeed mischievous. I still want revenge for our cat. Grab some soap and a container of flowers. We are worried because it's going to be obvious who did it. We are some of the only kids around. Go over there. Soap windows of a random, pretty nice car in their driveway. Dump flour all over it too. Haha, yeah, high five. Next day. Get home from school. Note taped to the door. Something along the lines of Dear Anon's last names. We are aware you have teenagers, but this was damage to our property. We have reasonable evidence to take you to court. However, my daughter convinced me to let it slide. Blah, blah, blah. Happy Halloween. Your bizarre neighbors. Felt bad because she stuck up for us, but realized later the old hag was probably bluffing.
Am I the only one that reads things like this, then makes up the same scenario but from the other person's point of view? Be me, walking around where we live. Mom didn't do any washing again, so I'm stuck with an old baggy t-shirt today. Decide to go see the horses my neighbor keeps. Start petting them. Tell them I have no food, but they keep nuzzling me. Show them I have no food in my hand. Suddenly, horse bites onto my hand. Holy shit, this hurts. WebM. Blood is pouring out my hand. Rush to the neighbor's house for help. They answer and see the blood right away. I'm panicking so much I can't talk. Neighbor puts a towel around me and calls my parents. Go to the hospital with a towel around me because mom still hasn't done any washing.
But no, listen, she had to hike through some woods and a stream to get to that farm. This brings me to my next story. Be me. Parents just moved into the house. Already had my older sister, who was probably 2 or 3 at that point. My dad, being the friendly guy he is, goes on over to where the odd neighbor parents live with my older sister, and they give her cookies and such. Whatever. They shoot the shit. He invites them over sometime. They say their daughter is going to live with them. From how they talked and what they said, my dad concludes she is, or was, in college, maybe dropping out to live with them. Few months pass, he notices more yelling coming from their place. They never come over even though he calls. He eventually goes to drop off some vegetables he grew. Parents invite him inside. Dad sees the daughter. She's obviously high out of her mind. Talks to parents over the phone after horse incident saying he can help. She almost overdosed and was sent to rehab. Probably the point where she lost her marbles. My dad was a former cokehead, so he knew what that kind of shit looks like. Also, I think that's all I can recall. I got so desperate I asked my dad about some incidents.
Mom and Dad divorce. Mom can't work with me and my little brother. Mom can't afford it, so moves into a low-income commie block. Newly landed immigrants move in next door of Slavic origin. I think former Czechoslovakia to be exact. Teenage son is super creepy. Tries to be friends with me. I'm 10. One day he catches a carp. A huge carp in Lake Ontario, one of the most polluted lakes in North America. Plus a fucking carp. Who eats carp? Brings massive carp to us as a gift. Don't know how to react without being rude. Accepted carp, throw out later. One day I was chilling in a small bike shed in our front yard at like 10 p.m. I hear their door open and someone walk out and wanders their small front yard. We had a wooden fence that sits 5 feet high for privacy, by the way. All of a sudden, I hear talking in Czech or Slovak or whatever language. But he was alone. The kid was talking to himself. I kept quiet because I didn't want him to get embarrassed or angry I was eavesdropping. Not intentionally. All of a sudden, he starts talking in a panicked, anxious, and scatterbrained manner, then snaps and starts talking sharply and angrily. I was only a kid, so I didn't know what to do. I just thought, this guy was crazy. Then I heard silence. Then his front gate goes open, walking. My gate opens. WTF. He comes up to my small tin shed and opens it. There I am sitting scared, shitless. He's just staring at me. He shuts it. Walks to my gate, shuts it. Walks to his gate, shuts it. Walks in his house and shuts the door. I'm like, WTF. Scared. I go walk inside and tell my mom tries to talk to his parents. No use. They don't speak English for shit. Just offer my mom tea and strange-smelling candies. Some Europeans are so weird, man.
Growing up as a young teen from 11 to 14, I lived in a mostly Hispanic neighborhood. My best friend was from Puerto Rico. His mom was hot. His grandma was old and wrinkly. She spoke no English. Baby sat with another old lady who also spoke no English. and collected dentures as a hobby. My friend was never allowed to sleep over. Only once he was allowed to stay the night one time. He told us he had to sleep under the Virgin Mary picture because of his grandma. She collected spiritual candles with pictures of Mary, Jesus, and crosses and such. She had a whole table full constantly burning, that she would hide still burning under a tablecloth in the garage. So this neighborhood was kinda odd to begin with. There were always loud bangs out of nowhere, with no source. Like something would bang on the door, garage door, and walls. So I'm at my friend's house one day, and notice a medicine bowl under a picture of the Virgin Mary. It had some weird light blue powder in it. I wasn't going to touch it. I just looked at it and asked my friend what it was. He freaked out and yelled at me not to touch it. It was his grandma's, something in Spanish I didn't understand, and then he made me leave the room. So one night I'm sleeping in my bed and I hear it. Now living in Florida most of my life, I know what sonic booms sound like. This was no sonic boom. I lived in the middle of one side of a cul-de-sac, and at the opening on the other side of the road was my friend's house. So I'm trying to sleep when I start to hear a faint banging noise coming from the direction of my friend's house. I listen harder to try and make out what it was. I hear bang, bang, bang too, on the rooftops going from roof to roof, coming toward my house. I listened stiff as a bored scared as it got to my next-door neighbor's house with a loud boom. Then it hit my house. It was incredibly loud. Boom! The whole house shook. It then moved to the next house and next, and disappeared same as it came. When it hit my house, I was still scared. I didn't know what the hell it was, or what to do. I was clenching my sheets. After it hit, the walls crackled and popped for a good 20 minutes. Like when you hear a random pop in the wall, 'cause the house is settling. After a while, I told my mom about it. She said she heard something on the roof one night too. She said it sounded like it was huge, with 4 legs. I told her about my friend's grandma and she laughed and said it was probably her. I still don't know what it was. I never heard a story like it, and for a while as a teen thought maybe this was the thing that goes bump in the night. My friend's mom was crazy about Halloween, always dressing up, with full contacts, a haunted house and everything. Never did I see a Christmas decoration in their yard. Unrelated note, all my neighbors celebrated a holiday where a magical goat came and ate grass under their beds, leaving presents. I felt odd being the only one who didn't get one.
Live in a shitty apartment in a rich town. Live next to big townhouses that basically look down on my shitty apartment. If buildings could laugh, man. Family of 4 lives closest to my apartment. Husband, wife, 2 young boys, around 5 or 6 years old. Boys always ride their bikes around on the blacktop behind townhouses. My patio door has a perfect view of the blacktop. Beam me up at 3 in the morning playing Xbox. Chair is next to the patio door. Notice movement on the blacktop. Primitive curiosity ensues. Turn the TV off and crouch in front of the patio door. There's some guy sniffing and liking the shit out of the kids' bike seats. I sit there staring like what the hell. Guy suddenly stops and slowly looks up, right at me. Pushes the bike down like a Viking finishing his dinner, crosses his arms and stares at me. I'm frozen. We stare at each other for God knows how long. He starts laughing uncontrollably. I nope.jpg to my room and lock the door.
Okay, I grew up in a pleasant neighborhood, both peaceful and appealing to the eyes, but it had not 1 but 2 creepy houses. I'll start with the first one. Bear with me, because this doesn't really deal with the neighbor themselves, but it does deal with the house, or more or less, its occupant. I've mentioned this on a previous thread a couple months ago. The house across my street was very strange indeed. I've never had a neighbor live there for more than a half a year or so. Strangely enough, a man heroed himself there about 10 years ago. Throughout the years, people came and went, but whoever lived inside that house, misfortune happened to befall. Now both myself and my family have seen strange things going on there. I've been inside that house myself once, and only once. You could say that place put off an aura of pure creepy. Getting back to what I mentioned before, the first family that lived there was driven apart. A lot of their immediate family died the same year they moved into the house, and the family moved without so much as saying a word. Now, my parents were always good friends with the neighbors because they had a large peach tree in their front yard, and the first family always allowed us to take as many as we liked, which is why it was strange when they left. The second family was a Hispanic mother, a tiny son, and a father. Evidently, in the few months that they moved in, both of the grandparents on the father's side died, as well as the mother's aunt. Then the father was arrested and held for 5 years. He had given his friend a ride, and the guy happened to be carrying a stash of drugs on him at the time they were pulled over, due to a broken taillight. I made a lot of small talk with the neighbors as they came and went, mainly when my mother would tell me to go help shovel their drive and things like that. Anyways, things went like this for years. The family almost always left without saying a word. Others had complaints about the house and how they couldn't sleep. The latest victims of the house were a young woman, her husband, and 2 dogs. Okay, now for the other house. This one sat directly to the right of mine and was very strange as well. I've only met its occupant around 7 times in my life. The man inside was a complete recluse. I had no idea what his job was, but I've only seen him leave really late at night, around 12 or 1 in the morning. I've never seen the inside of his house because he has all of the windows of his house entirely covered. With secondhand blankets, black trash bag, there's even cardboard covering one of his basement windows. I know this because I was hired to mow his front and back lawn. His instructions were simple: mow the lawn, weed eat. But I was to leave the bushes growing in the front and sides of his house, all of which were in front of windows, completely untouched. He said he would put the money in my mailbox the day after. So I mowed his lawn, and he promptly gave me money for it. It went like this for a while, a couple of years actually. Sometimes at night, I'd see this blue light coming from one of his windows, like he put those fluorescent hospital lights in his house, which I found very unsettling for no discernible reason. Anyways, one summer night, 2 men pull up in front of his house. They waited in a green car for nearly half an hour. My mother informed my dad, who then told us to shut the lights in our house off. After doing so, he told us to go to our rooms. I didn't mind because my window overlooks the street and the front of his house. I sat in my room with the lights off, watching. 2 men got out of the car and one carried a metal box to the other side of the street. He put the box behind a bush in front of our elderly neighbor's house. He grabbed a few things out of it, then briskly walked back to his companion. One man sat in the car with it running, the lights turned off. I could tell because of the exhaust in the street light. Anyways, they go behind his house. I couldn't see much from my window, just the guy in the car. My father, on the other hand, had told me the details. The 2 men had gone to the back of his house and tried to break in through the bottom door under his porch. Seeing that it was futile, one of them started to climb the steps to his porch, but he didn't know one thing. The porch was entirely rotted. He stepped on it with a loud crack. Even I heard it. Then a police car drove by on a second road to our neighborhood. The 2 men ran to the car, one grabbed the box, and they were out of there. They haven't been back since. I wish I could say more, but I really can't. The guy's suspicious with a capital S. He still lives in that house. Maybe he's involved with drugs. Maybe he owes someone money. Maybe he has some sick fetish he hides from the world. Hell if I know.
Cleanse it with fire. It is the only way.
To be honest, maybe the place is cursed and haunted, but I think it seems more interesting to have it around. Although you can see a change in the people that live there. Over months, they look more tired and they seem really on edge.
A couple of years ago, when I was still in high school, 2 friends and I would get together after school and work on making movies. We'd spend long days into the evening going out into fields and under abandoned bridges and things making movies for class or just for fun or whatever. Anyway, one of the kids I hung around would always be at his house alone. I never saw his parents, and he never talked about them. I never saw their cars in the driveway or anything. I thought it was a bit strange, but I didn't want to be weird and question him, so I didn't. A couple of weeks went by, and we finished our final project. I was sitting over at his house playing some Mario Kart and listening to music, and me, my one friend, and the kid with the mysterious parents all got in his car to drop our camera off at the school. So just as we're pulling out, some woman comes pulling up in the driveway and gets out. My friend explains that this is his mom, and she tells me to unroll my window. I unroll it, and my friend tells her we're going back to the school. Then she looks me dead in the eyes and makes a gun with her hand and imitates shooting me, saying he's going to shoot you one day, meaning her son. I was weirded out, and that was the last time I saw her, and basically the last time I saw her son. He moved away shortly after.
I had a creepy neighbor once. This crazy old bastard power walked up and down the street all night, but he still smoked like a chimney. He had a mustache that he dyed black, and that shit looked like shoe polish on his face. He would creep up out of nowhere and scare the shit out of you. It seemed like he was outside from midnight till daylight. His old ass finally died of a heart attack, and I can't say I miss him. Years ago now, grew up in Orange County, California. Had a neighbor we called Fishface. Was pretty young, not too sure why. The van he drove had some company logo on it for fish tanks or some shit. Rarely saw him. Can't remember personally ever seeing him. During holidays, especially Christmas, he'd go full out for decorations. Hundreds of lights and statues, reindeer, Santa, etc., etc. Always did it in the dead of night. Literally no one ever saw him put up the lights. As days would progress towards Christmas, he'd take them down, always in the dead of night. More days pass, lights and shit go back up. This happens constantly, every few days, every year. Same neighborhood, house across the street is bought and the couple moves in. Previous owner was an old woman whose son lived with her. One day the son is lifting weights in the garage and he drops a bar on his neck and dies. Seemingly a crazy, nasty old Russian couple moves into the house. Hardly see them. When you do, they just scowl at you, never speak. Mom and I eventually talk to them for some reason. They're the nicest people ever. They just don't speak English very well and look angry because they're Russian. Woman lived down the street, is legitimately crazy. Thinks the mailman is out to get or kill her. Leaves strange notes in the mailbox asking for the mail to be left on her porch. Oodles of other weird shit I was too young to understand at the time. Clearly remember several times the cops and ambulances coming to take her away.
Live in a 0 out of 10 apartment complex. The building across from mine has this one guy who sits on the steps all night smoking. In reality, he's probably a lookout for a dealer, but sometimes he plays a little too much with fire. Like he sets leaves on fire and lets them burn, deliberately tries to toss his cigarette into dry pine straw, and makes little flamethrowers with WD-40 or something. Different people, neighbors right next to us. Literally the most paranoid people I have ever seen. The only one who talks to me is the dad, but only if I'm alone and my husband isn't around. They have a secret knock they change every 2 weeks, constantly checking their locks. Had the wife open the door, see me leaving my apartment, and then she went back in and didn't exit until I was in my car. At first we were laughing about it, but now we're really wondering WTF they're doing. Never see them bring in groceries or smell cooking from their apartment. Sometimes I hear a baby crying from over there, but I never see said baby.
Be me, having a house on a cul-de-sac in the suburbs. Just me, my wife and son. Pretty nice, get along with the neighbors. New neighbors move in. I could swear I never saw the old ones move out. New neighbor's house quickly goes to shit. Lawn is overgrown, shutters falling off, bees' nests. Never really see the new neighbors. Rumor around the neighborhood is there are 3 of them. Some weird foreigners with a name I'm not even going to try to spell. Wife thinks I'm being paranoid, says we should go over and introduce ourselves. Fast forward to last night, hanging out, smoking a cigar with the neighbors. Weird noise starts up, coming from the foreigner's house. Lights and heat coming from the basement. Noise like you can't imagine. Standing in my neighbor's yard too dumbstruck to move. Suddenly, garage door opens on the foreigner's house. Duck behind garbage cans. Car pulls out and up to the curb. Gangly-looking redhead kid gets out. He's looking around. Pulls out black plastic garbage bag. Puts it into the can. It's too big. He pulls out a big stick and just starts wailing on it. Pounds it into the can and puts the lid on. Looks around and gets back in the car. Drives back into the garage and closes the door. We tried to go investigate, but it started to rain. Tomorrow morning, though, we're going to go over there and see just what the hell is in that garbage can. This shit ain't going down, not in my neighborhood.
This Greentext is about my one and only paranormal encounter at 16. Summer of 2014, our neighbor's 2 townhouses over at our fights with her older sons a lot. Somewhere in the middle of the summer, her distant relative moves in to help with them. Never found out how he was related or what country he was from, but he had a strong accent. He wore big polo shirts and was underweight. Our neighbor tells us her sons are mistreating him and not listening. One day my dad and I were walking our dog and he approached us, starts crying and confiding in us. He says he has been drinking and tells us that our neighbor's kids are wicked. He asks us to walk our dog with us down by a creek and cornfield. We let him come along. He enjoys himself a lot and plays with our dog. Jumps into the creek to play with the dog, gets really happy and begins to start referring to us as Mr. my dad's first name and Mr. my first name. Tells us this is the best time he's had since moving here and that he loves us. He starts to act like a funny mime in the cornfield. He imitates going down a flight of steps into the corn, keeps saying, "Look, misters, I'm going downstairs." Does this a couple times and my dad and I laugh. He does it one more time and this time he doesn't come back up. No sign of him whatsoever, and it's as if he really went down a pair of steps into the corn. We are really confused and think he sneaked away, but it doesn't look possible. He literally vanished. The next day he calls us and tells us he's in another state and isn't coming back to our neighbor's house. Neighbor moves in a month later. That is the last time we ever see or hear from him. So that's my story of the corn neighbor. We call him the corn neighbor because we don't remember his name after all these years.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.